You're listening to Popcorn Poops, episode 89, in which we watch and discuss Alex Proyas' 1994 film, The Crow, for hashtag Poopling Picks Month. If you'd like to sync this podcast episode up to the movie, go ahead and start the film and then press pause as soon as the title card reading Brandon Lee fades to black. We'll get things started here soon, but first, here's a word from our poo pals over at In Session Film.
Hey guys, this is JD from the In Session Film Podcast. Every week on our show, you can join my co-host Brendan and I as we review the latest films that's out in theaters. It also inspires us to discuss a top 3 list of some sort, and we have a lot of other fun movie discussions as well. It's always a blast. And we also have a show on Fridays called our Extra Film Podcast. This is a show that gives us the space to talk about the latest indies and art films and other classics that we normally just don't get to talk about on our main show. You can find our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, SoundCloud, TuneIn Radio, Player FM, and more. In fact, you can just see everything about us, including our social medias, at InSessionFilm.com. So join us every week. We'd absolutely love to have you.
We are the Popcorn Poops.
Welcome to Popcorn Poops, the best married couple movie podcast / commentary track hybrid audio program on the internet. My name is Jessica, and with me, as always, is my husband and co-host, Dustin.
Hi there. Hello, and how are ya?
I'm doing really good.
We're late on the podcast again, and we have to apologize for that, but we did have a little setback. We went on a road trip to Kansas City, Missouri, KC-Mo, this past weekend, which put us behind on work and things, and work becomes before things, and things includes the podcast. So work's out of the way now, and on to things, which is the podcast.
We did see a special friend when we were on our trip.
Yes, we did. And that special friend was my uncle. But we also saw, we actually went to visit my uncle, but we also stopped in Metropolis, Illinois, and saw Mr. Superman. Mr. Man, first name Super. And that was very impressive. First time seeing the big Superman statue, and it's a big-ass Superman statue.
It's not much else in Metropolis.
No, but there is a bronze Lois Lane statue that's not that big, that's, I think, person-sized. That we did not see, and I learned about when we came back, and it is in fact modeled after the likeness of Noelle Neal, who was the Lois Lane in the George Reeves Superman serials. I guess they were serials technically. And the day after we saw the Superman statue and missed the Lois Lane statue, Noelle Neal died.
Wow.
That's right. I think we may have done that by not seeing her statue. Feel really bad about it. Yeah. I feel mostly irritated that we drove through Metropolis, saw the Superman statue, and had no idea there was another statue or anything there, so we left without seeing it. But rest in peace, Noelle Neal. You were truly a great Lois Lane, at least better than Margot Kidder.
Can you read my mind?
Can you read my mind?
As always, you can find us on our website at popcornpoops.com. You can subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter at popcornpoops, and also personally, I'm at jcasperkramer.
And I am at Dusty Cram Cram.
You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, or follow our Twitch channel, Pixel Poops, which is at twitch.tv/thepixelpoops. Other ways to support the show include our merchandise shop, where you can get some...
Buy stuff.
Some t-shirts.
Buy stuff with our logos on it.
That's right. You can donate to the show at the donut button.
Click that donut. It's on our website, popcornpoops.com. You can't miss a giant pink donut.
And just give us cold hard cash. That's cool too.
That's right.
You can subscribe to Audible at audibletrial.com/popcornpoops and subscribe for a free trial.
It's like a 30-day trial, and you get a free audiobook that's yours to keep forever, whether
That's
or not
right.
you keep that trial.
But the best way to support the show is to leave us a review.
That's right. Ratings and reviews on iTunes and Stitcher. They do some black magic with the algorithm on those platforms, and they make our show pop up in like recommendation lists, and if we get a lot of reviews, maybe best of list, top 10 list, something like that. So if you want our show to pop up, if you want us to succeed at this thing that we've been doing for 2 years now, that's actually the best way to do it, is to get in there, leave us a rating and review, and we would really appreciate it if you did that also.
Do we have a review?
I believe we do. Co-host and wife Jessica.
I'm the host. You're the co-host today.
We're co-hosts to each other.
Okay, fine.
That's how it works. Let's be equal. This review comes from Stitcher, and it comes from an individual by the name of Turd Ferguson, who gives us 5 stars and writes the subject line, "Best poop of my life." And this says, "This podcast doesn't stink, but it does contain some great nuggets of wisdom about a pile of classic movies and a few kernels of truth. You'll want to drop the kids off at the pool so you can listen for hours. They just keep firing out jokes, and the husband-wife angle even makes you feel mushy sometimes." Very good. That was very impressive, and no one's done a review like that until this moment. Congratulations to Turd Ferguson for leaving us such an excellent themed review.
Appropriately themed review. And of course, if you want to leave us a rating and review on iTunes or Stitcher, we will read it on the show no matter what you say or how many stars you leave. So go do that. But we do like 5 stars.
We do kind of like the 5 stars. Speaking of themes, what's our theme this month?
Our theme this month is hashtag Poopling Pics month. And it is our first hashtag Poopling Pics episode of the month.
That's yes, technically
that we have
correct.
done this month before.
Previously
a year ago.
called Listener Request Month. Now it has been redubbed.
And today we are watching Alex Proyas's 1994 film, The Crow, requested by Chris in Clarksville, Tennessee. So let's take a listen to his voicemail.
Hey, Popcorn Poops. This is Chris in Clarksville, Tennessee. I want to request The Crow. It's on Netflix. It's one of my favorite movies ever. It's a fantastic movie. I think you guys will have a lot of fun with it. I love your podcast. I've been listening since the beginning. I try to watch the movie with it, but sometimes it doesn't work, so it works either way. Love the podcast. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. We really appreciate it.
Yes, very much. Appreciate it. Hope we don't break your heart.
I hope so.
Damn it. I didn't mean to spoil the episode, but yeah. Okay, let's get to it.
Sinkers, press play at the beep after the countdown. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
And we're off with The Crow. It's weird that there weren't any other credits or anything before the title card other than just Brandon Lee.
You'll notice this is October 30th.
Devil's Night. Devil Nights. Classic Electric Six tune. We saw Electric Six live once. Do you remember that?
We did.
That was a fun time, and I believe did they open with that song?
Where did we see them? Was it at the Exit Inn?
Exit Inn in Nashville. No, they opened with Dance Epidemic. Oh man, that brings back good college memories. This movie does not bring back good memories. I don't have a big history with this movie, not at all, actually. I watched it once, and it was a case of kind of, I got to catch up with this thing that everybody really likes, and I think I was maybe in high school, or I may have even already been in college when I finally got around to this. And when I watched it, it was a case of, okay, I can see how people like this, and that's the only time I've watched it. And watching it for this show, and again, I said I didn't want to break Chris's heart. I'm sorry, Chris. I don't think either one of us really like this movie now. There are things about it that I do like, and I will be as kind to it as I possibly can, leaning on those things that I like. But I do, in fact, have some criticisms. You might notice or recognize that window to the apartment that we're in right now as it pushes in on Ernie Hudson's face. Welcome back to the show, Ernie Hudson. We just saw you last week on Ghostbusters. Didn't expect to see you again so soon. But you might, in fact, recognize that window as the kidnapper's lair in the great Patrick Reed Johnson 1994 film Baby's Day Out.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I definitely recall that.
Do you really definitely recall that?
No, I don't. Not at all.
Not even a little bit?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay.
I think I've heard that that movie title perhaps before.
Yeah, there's a whole sequence where the baby in a gorilla cage.
Nope.
And that's I remember it being a pretty funny movie when I was very young. I mean, it came out when I was like 8, so that probably speaks volumes. So I don't really have a history with this movie, like
at all. What's with the Amelia Earhart thing? Why? Because he fell out of the window?
Yeah, maybe.
I was wondering why we got an Amelia Earhart reference there.
I'm not entirely sure.
Anyways, we've already missed this line. I can see why they took away your gold shield. Yeah, I wasn't a big enough asshole. Okay, so I spent the movie trying to figure out how many times this guy was demoted.
My count is 4.
I've 3 demotions, 4 different titles.
Sure.
Okay, but it's very unnecessarily confusing, I think. They make that comment right there. I can see why they took away your gold shield. And he says, yeah, I wasn't a big enough asshole. And so I was researching, I was like, what the hell? What does gold shield mean? Obviously, it stands for something. And typically, did you know off the bat what gold shield means?
Nope.
Okay, so I'm not just a complete idiot. Or we're both complete idiots.
No, definitely that.
So we can both be complete idiots together. But gold shield typically represents, that's typically given to detectives.
Okay.
Or at least at some point it was.
So he was a detective and now he's not.
That's not possible because he gets demoted from being a detective after this incident. He specifically talks about it later. Later, he specifically says...
That's the first of several unnecessary freeze frames we'll get throughout this movie.
Later, he specifically says that he was demoted because he was investigating the tenants and stuff after this murder.
Sure.
So he was demoted from detective then, after this scene, sometime after this scene.
But maybe in this 1 year since this event, he got re-promoted to detective and then demoted again.
No, I think it's more possible. Some places do like the top tier detective, it gets a gold shield. So maybe he was top dog detective, and then he got demoted to regular detective.
A lesser detective.
And then after he does investigating...
perhaps the Robin to Batman. Right?
After he does investigating, he gets demoted to patrol cop, which is what we see him as for most of the movie. And then later in the movie, he is suspended, which I will consider another demotion.
I see. Okay, well that makes...
So the question is...
marginally more sense.
Is it necessary?
Is it? I don't know, because after he's demoted twice in the movie, you think that, I don't know, I don't think there's much more emotional impact that him being demoted can have, and then he's demoted 2 more times.
Well, and two of those demotions happen off screen. They happen in other people referencing things.
Sure, yeah.
That's confusing unnecessarily, I think.
We did open the movie on Devil's Night, which is actually a holiday of sorts. It's like a criminal's holiday, and specifically in Detroit, it's about vandalism and arson, which they kind of explain. They never say that this city is actually Detroit. All of the police cars say inner city. But there is a shot of the TV later in the movie where you do actually see it says Detroit on the television. And, Devil's Night being specifically a Detroit, I feel weird calling it a holiday, but let's call it a holiday. And then, of course, you've got a band, like I mentioned, Electric Six, which is a band from Detroit who has a song called Devil Nights.
I think there's some weird musical choices in the score. I know that the soundtrack is revered by people.
Score by Graham Revell or Revel. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name.
And I don't necessarily even mean the score, but this incidental music, is that the right term?
Yes.
Right now, where it's the ragtime music at the hot dog stand?
Diegetic.
Diegetic?
Yeah, diegetic.
What's the difference?
Diegetic. Incidental music is music that just happens to be playing. Like if I'm recording you and music has just happened to be playing in the background, that's incidental music. Diegetic music is music that is supposed to be happening in the scene, like in a movie scene. Like it's planned by the filmmakers, but I don't know.
Okay, I get what you're saying. Anyways, there's ragtime music playing at the hot dog stand, and this is a really dark situation going on here, and even the hot dog stand should be kind of dreary. It's this little girl who's got a cracked out mom who she's getting dinner from a cop,
right?
And we've got this bouncy little ragtime thing going on, and I don't know, it's weird, and it's way weirder when they cut back to it after the building explodes. which we're about to see here, and they cut back to it. And anyways, I just think there are some moments like that. But yeah, the making this Detroit was one of the things that changed when they were adapting this from the comic book, right?
I didn't know that. I know they changed a lot.
From the question mark in my voice was from the comic book. I haven't read them, so
I haven't either.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know. I do know a few things were changed. I know in the comic he wasn't supposed to be a rock star. He's supposed to be a mechanic, and he didn't even have a last name in the comic, or he had one, but they never mentioned it. And in the movie, they give him the last name Draven. His name is Eric Draven. Eric fucking Draven. Like, his last name actually has the word Raven in the name. It's pretty hokey.
No, I know that was one of the things they changed. They added Devil's Night as the motivating factor behind the initial attack on Eric and Shelley, just to give the villains a more esoteric agenda, apparently.
Okay.
And making that decision grounded the movie in Detroit. Other things they changed, they downplayed Eric's drug use, and they brought the love story to the forefront. Also, apparently in the comics, the crow was just Eric's psyche, I think, whereas they made it an actual animal.
Right, like not an albatross, but an avatar or something like that.
I could have used some more drug use from Eric in this. I could have used something darker and messed up like that.
Yeah, he's kind of a good boy. Mm-hmm. A little bit.
I don't understand what he's like, what his place is in this world.
He's a little bit of a good boy.
She's eating that hot dog real weird.
she is. Yeah, and then, you know, these Eric and Shelley were supposed to get married on Halloween. I don't know, like, it feels like this movie is really, and maybe this is a movie that kind of influenced that movement to some degree, but I feel like the goth movement, the modern goth movement that kind of grew out of the punk scene, was something that already kind of had its place, and then this movie kind of pushed it into toward the commercialized, like, Hot Topic goth direction, the Hot Topic punk. And I think that a lot of people would probably agree with that. I think this is a kind of a cult favorite in that vein. But yeah.
Yeah, they have
style. I mean, it's all style. Like, it really is style, and I guess theme. Like, the themes of the movie dealing with, you know, death and revenge and stuff like that. Like, kind of heavy. Can be handled a little bit heavier, I think, but kind of heavy, darker themes. Running through this movie, I think, and of course the style, you know, all the Halloween shit, like this skeleton on the door, and there's, you know, we see jack-o'-lanterns being smashed and shit.
And it's not just a skeleton here, you know, it's a dirty skeleton. Like,
it's a dirty, skeleton.
Right, but
decoration.
Like decoration, yeah, but everything's old and dirty, and of course the building's been, you know, not inhabited for, we can assume, a year. How did that kitty survive?
I can assume the cat can catch shit on its own to eat, but what I want to know is how that cat is still solid white.
True. How is the cat solid white, and why is it not just one giant mat? Because we have a golden chinchilla Persian.
Yes.
And our kitty turns into a giant mat if I don't brush her for a day or two. So how that kitty could, and it looked like it was some type of Persian, how that kitty could not be a giant mat,
yeah,
is beyond me.
And so we've got the scene here of Eric thrashing and raging around his apartment as he recalls the night that his wife, or fiance rather, was raped and murdered, and then he was also murdered. And there's no actual Brandon Lee in this scene because, of course, famously, probably the most famous thing that this movie is known for is, of course, that Brandon Lee was killed tragically while making this movie. And it was during this flashback sequence right here that the moment happened.
But they do not show it in this movie.
Oh no, that footage
as the myth goes.
Yeah.
Oh, dear.
That footage is long gone.
Oh, I learned a new vocab word because of this movie.
Yeah, what's that?
I didn't learn how to pronounce it, though. That's a problem. But I think it's defenestration,
Oh, yeah, to be thrown out of a window.
the act of throwing someone out of a window. The term was coined around the time of an incident in Prague Castle in the year 1618, which became the spark that started the 30 Years' War.
Okie doke, then.
Somebody got thrown out a window.
All right. Of course, the leader of this gang, or the sub-leader, this guy right here smoking a cigar, who is just an amazing, plays incredible psychopaths in a lot of movies. He's kind of typecast that way. Is, of course, David Patrick Kelly, who's an incredible character actor. Welcome to the podcast. Probably best known for his roles in The Warriors and maybe Dreamscape. But yeah, there's lots of stuff in this movie, lots of little circumstantial things that kind of make this feel really manufactured.
The idea of swallowing a bullet is just awful. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like a big pill. It's not going to digest. It'll come out. You could probably poop it out and put it in a gun and fire it. Then you'd have a poop bullet. Wonder what kind of creature requires a poop bullet to be killed. Anyway, there's lots of little circumstantial things that make this feel really manufactured, like how it takes place on Halloween and the night before their wedding. And if Devil's Night is like an arsonist's holiday or a vandal's holiday, why are they breaking into people's houses and like raping them and shit like that? Like, I get it.
That's something else,
And
though.
it's kind of unrelated. You know, you talked about how they have like an esoteric agenda, and that was kind of a choice made by the filmmakers to set it on Devil's Night, or to have that be kind of the big moment, which is a very kind of Halloween thing, like a very like Halloween, like John Carpenter's Halloween, where you know he comes back every Halloween or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of interesting, but at the same time, do we really need that additional conflict of it being set on Devil's Night? When we have the conflict of apparently Shelley was fighting forced eviction or forced relocation,
Right.
from these gang
Forced
members.
tenant eviction. And it makes you wonder if they're supposed to be connected somehow, that Devil's Night and these fires and stuff has something to do with the tenant eviction, and it doesn't. But it makes you feel like it should, because you've got these two conflicts that don't go together.
Well, exactly. You've got the police dealing with this issue, dealing with the murders and cleaning up the crime scene, while they talk about how many fires there have been on Devil's Night, and how it's like, oh, there's only so many fires, it's still early, we're going to get a lot more and whatever. Of course, this song starting here is Burn by The Cure. James O'Barr, who wrote the comic The Crow, constantly listened to the songs of Joy Division and The Cure while making the graphic novel and the comic strip. It actually started as a comic strip, I think, which is weird. But yeah, actually, Robert Smith of The Cure agreed to write an original song for the movie, and it was apparently a big hit at the time. But The Cure has actually only performed this song live one time. It was 19 years after the film's release or something like that. And allegedly, according to IMDb trivia, when a fan asked if they'd play the song at a concert, the bassist Simon Gallup replied, "Did we do that one for a soundtrack? I don't remember it." Huh? And I would say that this is probably one of their more famous songs. Unfortunately, this, the birth of the Crow scene here, Brandon Lee wasn't alive for.
Right.
All of this, his face right here, is all composited onto him, as the lightning flashes. This is all body doubles and stuff. Him hanging out in the Baby's Day Out apartment. But yeah, I think that's pretty sad that he wasn't able to be a part of that, because everything I've read about Brandon Lee's involvement with this movie is that he really, really gave a shit about this character and really gave a shit about this project, Mm-hmm. So, it sucks that has to happen. And we'll talk about what exactly went down later on, but
anyways, I had I'm way behind on my notes. So some of the stuff I wanted to talk about, let's talk about the mythology of the Crow itself, because at the beginning we get that introduction, sometimes the soul can't rest. So the Crow brings people back to right the wrongs or whatever, right? And so crows carrying away the dead in mythology. Crows feed on the dead. So for forever, pretty much, they've been associated with death and the dead. I mean, we say a murder of crows.
Yeah.
So, you know, the Irish believe 3 caws is from a crow is like a death being announced. Crows hung out in battlefields, medieval hospitals, execution sites, cemeteries. They're smart. They're a very, very smart bird, as I understand. They use tools and stuff like that. So,
but they're also scavengers, aren't they? They're like vultures,
right? Yeah, but they're very, very smart. So, like I said, they do things. They were noted for like following armies to battlefields. And they, before there was any killing, before there were any dead bodies, and they'd followed the armies because they were smart enough to know that there would be dead bodies. But anyways, some Native American cultures see them positively and see them as like a connection to the other side. Celtic lore has them as communicators with the gods. In the Talmud, a crow teaches Adam and Eve to bury dead by killing another crow and then showing them how to do it.
Brutal. So brutal and dark, like my tattered black soul.
In both Buddhist and Benedictine monk tradition, crows are used as symbols to remind people to keep death in their thoughts. But the one I think really gets the closest to what we have in this movie is the Tibetan lore, because Tibetans put bodies on temples so crows could carry them to the next life.
And by carry them, they mean eat them little by little down to the bones?
Right, but we can assume like the spiritual connection of them, you know, the
Sure.
crows would carry the body, right, or carry the spirit or whatever, something like that. So anyways, I don't think there's one specific mythology that this is following, but I think this is, and I don't think there's a specific story or something that Sarah's quoting, but I think this is kind of just an amalgamation of all the lore we have and have always had about crows and ravens. And also, did you know there are no crows in this movie?
I know. There are only ravens because ravens are much more cinematic because they're bigger and they have bigger beaks.
Yeah.
And they look cooler. But yes, crows and ravens are different species altogether.
They are different, and there are no crows in the movie. There are only ravens, which
That's
they
true.
train to do pretty cool things like fly in the rain, which birds don't typically do.
There's also a draven, an Eric Draven. Ravens and dravens. No crows, but yes, dravens and ravens all day long. All day. We've got the fight here between the crow. Okay, so here's a question. Is Brandon Lee's character, Eric Draven, when he's dressed up, when he's transformed and he's got the makeup on, is he the crow, or does the crow only refer to the supposed crow animal in the movie and he's just Eric?
Oh, so can
his-
you call him the crow?
I don't think maybe you can. I think he's just Eric Draven come back from the dead, and the title refers to the crow, which is his link. We find out later his link between the realm of the living and the dead, right? Maybe.
I guess so.
So I've always been like compelled to call him the Crow as though it's a superhero name. Like, here comes the Crow. He's gonna fuck your shit up. But in fact, I think that's probably not the case. I can't confirm that. I haven't heard that, confirmation from anywhere. But that's
I
just
don't know.
my
I guess I always did assume that like he was the crow.
We've got a pretty good performance here from Lawrence Mason playing Tintin, one of the gangsters in this movie, one of the bad guys. He did use a real big word on referring to a character that Joe Polito plays, Gideon, in the pawn shop. He calls him a saprophyte.
Yeah.
Which is a plant or a fungus or a microorganism that lives on dead or decaying organic matter.
So, we're going with the themes
Sure,
here.
it's thematically relevant. Sure, that's fine. That's fine. This little fight sequence is a little bit undercooked, I think.
I think so too.
The punch sound effects are roundabouts Walker Texas Ranger quality. Just a whop, like that kind of shit.
We get one shot there to show us that he was in a band. That's not referenced. I mean, I know we see him with a guitar, but it's not referenced in any other way, is it?
No, not really. Yeah, and it's, watching like the fight scenes and stuff like that, and watching like him running across rooftops and how bad some of the special effects are. It's really hard watching the success of something like what we watched last week, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which is a comic book movie much like this one that had no real foundation or skeleton to build itself upon. It's kind of hard to watch this and see how, and kind of accept how raw and unsophisticated it is, especially when when this movie also had Batman. Like, it didn't just have It had Batman, it had Ninja Turtles, it had a couple of things before this to kind of say, okay, this is what we want to try to model this movie after, in so many words.
We didn't watch Ninja Turtles last week, did we? I thought we watched Ghostbusters
I'm sorry,
last week.
not last week. We did watch Ghostbusters last week. A few weeks ago when we watched Ninja Turtles. But yes.
Tony
Todd, Candyman. Candyman.
That was the band Medicine, I believe, playing their song Time Baby 2.
What? Is it a sequel?
The song Time Baby 3 is, which was on the album, is a different version. I stumbled upon a YouTube argument in the comments where people were really upset and saying very rude words at each other about whether it was Time Baby 2 or Time Baby 3, and I have solved it. Time Baby 2 in the film, Time Baby 3 on the album.
Okay. Well done.
Thanks.
Here we've got Michael Wincott, actor and voice actor, with just an incredible face and voice. I really love his choice in this movie to kind of play this with like a Texan accent or something. It's really strange. There's kind of a dissonance between his appearance and his voice that I really dig. He's got kind of a pirate thing going on too.
What okay, let's talk about the pirate thing. Because someone makes a comment later, someone makes a comment about them all having pirate names.
Oh, okay.
And I'll find it later.
They have terrible pirate names.
I don't understand.
This shot right here was the hint. Only one person got it, Taylor Nelson on Facebook, and she did not have a plug, but congratulations to Taylor Nelson for correctly identifying this movie from this particularly naughty scene. We saw booby there. Did you see that booby?
I don't understand why we call it pirate. Is Tintin is from The Adventures of Tintin.
Yes.
And
technically pronounced Tantan, but yes.
And he has like a captain with him who's a merchant, but he's not a pirate.
No.
And I think sometimes they meet pirates.
I mean, I think he's a sometimes pirate. I don't know. I never read the Tantan comics.
I didn't either, but I really didn't think that. I think, they visit pirates sometimes, but I don't think they're pirates. So that's not a pirate name to me. Fun Boy isn't a pirate name to me.
Well, it depends on what kind of pirate he is. I guess.
Is T-Bird a pirate name?
No, I guess not. But I think the main guy, the guy played by Michael Wincott with the long hair and the Texan accent, his name is never actually spoken in the movie, but his name is Top Dollar. His name is Top Dollar.
They all had a whole jolly club with jolly pirate nicknames is the line.
Yeah. Very kind of...
I don't think they
kind
are.
Of Dick Tracy-esque. Of course, this is post-Dick Tracy as well, but you've got like kind of this weird, unique group of criminals that all have interesting names. But yeah, we just saw a scene with Sarah, who apparently is still a character in this movie. The young girl who was taken care of inexplicably by Eric and his fiancée, Shelley, before they were killed tragically. And then we also did meet her mother, Darla, who likes the drugs and the sexes.
Other things. The little girl, Sarah, she doesn't like onions.
She's after your own heart.
She is.
She definitely is, because you do not tolerate
any onions.
I guess
any type of onion either. Even chives count.
Here comes the Edgar Allan Poe reference. I think he already did it. We couldn't get out of this without an Edgar Allan Poe reference.
Well, right.
He actually misquotes
of course.
The Raven. He says, "Suddenly I hear a tapping," and the poem actually reads, "Suddenly there came a tapping." Yeah, like this whole sequence right here is kind of... weird. Evan, why did I say Evan? Eric expects Gideon, right here, played by Joe Polito, to remember a specific gold ring that was pawned or sold to him a year ago. He expects him to remember that, and then he terrorizes his shop.
I really feel like beating the hell out of this guy because he bought stolen goods from bad guys. I mean, he's going to say each one of these is a life you helped destroy when he's talking about the rings. And I'm sitting there thinking, but is it really? Because at that point, if he already has the rings, aren't the lives destroyed already? Aren't they dead?
It's pretty presumptuous.
I mean, I'm not saying you should buy,
right,
things from dead people, because then you're giving an outlet for the criminals to sell them.
It's enabling. It's the idea of being an enabler, that if you are a place where the criminals can take the rings, then they will do the activity or the
offense.
Yeah.
Is that right?
What?
A fence that who you can sell it to.
Okay.
The terminology. Okay, never mind.
I'm not sure. Maybe.
Anyways, though, so like I guess I realize it's enabling, but I don't know. I think that he goes a little overboard with stabbing this guy in the hand, and he really doesn't, though. He isn't supposed to be a good guy, I think.
No, Eric is. I don't think he's.
But it's kind of confusing.
He is definitely an anti-hero, but by the end of this scene, he has effectively done basically what the bad guys are doing. Like he sets the shop on fire. He burns this shop to the ground. And that's, that's we kind of start the movie. We definitely start the movie on Devil's Night, where we hear that these bad guys are rolling around town raising hell and setting things on fire and committing terrible arson, and they do it every single year. And then by the end of this scene, that's exactly what our supposed hero is doing. And I get that he's supposed to be conflicted and an anti-hero and dark and maybe not making the right choices or doing the right things. But I think that there's a core message that they're missing out on this movie, and it never kind of resolves itself at the end. You do get to the end of this movie, and you're forced to think back, what was the moral of this story? And if you come away with anything but revenge is good, revenge feels good, do revenge because it's the right thing to do, then you probably don't understand the movie, because that's exactly what the movie's saying. It doesn't have anything else to say.
When I said fence, I wasn't crazy. That's what you call someone in Skyrim who will buy your stolen goods. So. Okay.
All right, then.
Just letting you know.
But yeah, so we did see a giant crow symbol that was being investigated by Ernie Hudson's character Albrecht and the police force, which is something that we've seen superheroes do in movies for a while. Batman does that, Daredevil does that, and it's a thing that kind of goes all the way back. I would like to date this earlier than Zorro, but that's the earliest one that I can think of is the Zorro act of carving the Z in doors and shit like that, which is what these superheroes do whenever they light their logo, their emblem on fire, or paint it on a wall or something to let people know they were there.
So other things I've missed, when they talk about Lake Erie catching on fire, right? So that's a real thing.
Yeah,
actually,
kind of.
It was exactly not Lake Erie, but a river that fed into Lake Erie.
Yes.
And it caught on fire in 1969, and that ignited a firestorm of public outrage over the indiscriminate dumping of sewage and industrial chemicals.
But what were they
into
talking
the Great
about
Lakes.
in the movie?
I don't know. I don't remember, but they mentioned it. It probably had to do with the Devil's Night stuff.
Mentioned dumping stuff into the river so much that you could light it on fire
or something
whatever.
Like that.
Yeah.
Anyways, though, yeah, that apparently was not particularly unusual back in the day.
No.
The Lake Erie incident was not that unusual. Rivers and lakes were catching fire repeatedly back then because of the sludge and stuff during the Industrial Revolution.
Industrial?
Yeah.
Did you say industrial or industrial?
Well, I was trying to say industrial.
You were thinking of me, industrial. Yes, the industrial revolution is the revolution.
I just kind of slurred over some of those consonants.
That's fine. We know you're drunk.
I wish I was.
The shot where Eric fires the shotgun full of rings to ignite the flame in Gideon's pawn shop was achieved by actually just cutting to some oversized rings being dropped toward the camera through a puff of smoke. So it's really just a simple cut and an effect, kind of an in-camera effect that was achieved, which is pretty cool. But yeah, in this scene right here, you'll see some looters come out of the building, and the one carrying a TV is James O'Barr, the man responsible for the Crow character, the creator of the graphic novel.
So I'm going to say something that perhaps the person who suggested this movie to us won't appreciate.
Yes.
As any other fan of this movie won't appreciate.
Yes.
Okay, so during the flashbacks,
Yes.
and we have him, putting on the mask, and he's laughing with her in the flashback, and then there's the kid,
really over the top emotions.
the kid they take care of for no explained reason, pillow fighting with them on the bed.
Shit. I know what you're gonna say.
And then a flashback to sex on the bed with candles and lots of pillows and silky sheets. And then we have a guy with long, dark hair. And all I can feel is the room.
Oh, no. That's amazing. Oh, hi, Shelley.
Oh, hi.
Oh, hi.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not saying anything else in this movie compares to that movie.
No.
It's just during those flashbacks, because he does the flashback thing in the room a lot. And just the way it looks, like, again, with the random fucking kid that they take care of for no explicable reason. I mean, we don't explain it in this movie. I know she needs help, but that's it. That's just the only reason. There's no connection. Why does she know them?
What does Shelley do? Does Shelley work for like a...
Right, have her be a teacher or something like that.
Social worker,
whatever.
teacher, school counselor, something. But Shelley's not... I mean, Shelley is not a character at
all. Nothing, even though she is the motivation for this entire movie, because she's
the girlfriend in the fridge. She's a trope, is what she is. She's the dead girlfriend that motivates the hero to come back. Although, and this is another thing that really bothers me about this movie, or just the concept in general, and it's not just a criticism of the movie, but it is of the concept. Why does he come back?
Why not her?
In the comics, it wasn't Shelley that hung on for like 30 hours, as Ernie Hudson says in this movie. It was actually Eric who held on for 30 hours and kind of experienced all that, these really terrible emotions and pain and all this kind of stuff, which may explain more, at least, or give some kind of emotional connection for the audience to understand why he might come back over her.
Right, and they do that weird thing later in the movie where he uses his mind power to give the memories of Shelley's pain to the bad guy.
Right.
Which would make more sense if it was his memories. But those are memories he took from someone else who
Ernie
watched
Hudson.
her.
Exactly. Ernie Hudson was there, and he was like, oh, you stayed there the whole time. I'm going to take your memories. And then he gives those terrible memories to someone else from Ernie Hudson.
They're not his. They're not even Shelley's.
What an awful fuck up. How do you fuck that up? That's an emotional beat that I'm not saying that it's brilliant or anything, but it makes more sense than him dying by being thrown out the window and dying immediately, and then for whatever reason he's the one that comes back. Why?
I think them laying so heavy on the love story in this is part of the problem.
See, and that's what so many people really like about this, is that it's like a gothic romance. It's like that kind of feeling that there's, love motivates these really dark and terrible things, and what awful things would you do for love, and would you call them heroic and all that kind of shit.
No, and I think you can have that movie. I think you absolutely can. But I don't think that... I think this movie lays really, really heavy on the love story, but it never did the footwork for the love story.
Yes, exactly.
And that's the problem.
We don't know these characters. I feel like Eric barely becomes a character by the end of the movie, and the only person who does have even close to a really rounded character, you could say that maybe Albrecht does, Ernie Hudson here, or I would say even Top Dollar. I would say that Top Dollar has more of a character than anybody else in the movie. And it's simply because of one line where it kind of he
Right,
gives
about
you
his father.
about his father giving him the snow globe that's got the graves in it, and he says,
And I don't know if he even gave it to him or not, but he's holding the snow globe when he says it.
he says something about his something about, I think he did say his father gave it to him, but
said
the point was
his father told him.
okay, well, whatever it was, the point of the scene was he says childhood ends the moment that you realize you're going to die, or the moment you find out that you're going to die, right? And that's kind of, I mean, you're going to have to do some mental gymnastics and some psychological gymnastics to get there, but I think that does inform his character a lot and gives him a lot more characterization than just about anybody in the film gets.
Right, because we see all these things he's doing, and then we hear this motivating, childhood
Right.
factor.
Of course, Eric is motivated by a lost love, but a love is a relationship. It requires two components. It's at least two components. It's got those two people, and one of those components we don't know anything about at all.
Right, and the thing is that when you're developing characters, as a writer, I don't think it's always easy to develop characters. It's certainly most of the time very difficult. But the thing is that when it's done well, it looks and feels seamlessly just flawless easy. Like
Right.
and like in that moment where we just get the one line about the father, and then you're like,
Right. It has to
and
be
I understand his character.
evocative but subtle. And how do you be evocative without being heavy-handed? And how do you
Right.
be subtle without being, obtuse or something?
And it's like when you read a story or something where, you've only got you're a page into it, and you're like, oh my God, I know this character so well, and I've read 300 words, and then you read something that is novel length and you don't know the characters at all. And that's the difference between obviously good writing and bad writing. But this is one of those cases where we get a lot of flashbacks. It's not that they're not putting the time in, because they're putting the time in. We get a lot of flashbacks with him and Shelley. Look at them laughing on the bed together. Look at them having a pillow fight. Look at them doing this. But it doesn't actually tell us anything. And if you want to see it done, because there could be an argument, well, they didn't have enough time to do it, or it was a pretty short movie, or whatever, right? But if you want to see the argument for how it's done very, very quickly and just gets it out of the way, and then has that motivating factor for the romance being the motivating factor of the entire movie, just watch the first couple of minutes of Up.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Right? And you watch the first couple minutes of that movie and you go, oh shit, I understand both of these characters, and I am deeply, deeply invested in this romance.
And you
right
can
now.
kind of forgive that the rest of the movie is sort of
Right? But the one thing that's certain is that movie is motivated by this romance that we only get for like a minute at the beginning of the movie.
Well, it's like more like 10 minutes, but it is. It's strong
my
enough.
memory.
It's strong enough to propel the rest of the movie in such a way that it gives the rest of the movie weight in a way that nothing else in the movie does.
Right. No, totally true. But again, I'm just
so
talking
it can be
about
done. Yeah. No. That setup is important.
You've got a short amount of time, and you're trying to develop this relationship and those characters. It absolutely can be done. This movie doesn't do it, even though I feel like they devote just as much time, if not more time, to the romance in this movie.
Yeah.
But I don't think
with all the flashbacks
and stuff,
sure.
But I don't think that it accomplishes anything.
Let's talk about.
Oh, you can see the tube there when he kicked his leg up of the blood bag.
Oh, really? That's funny. Let's talk about Michael Massee. Michael Massee plays Fun Boy here, and he is mostly a TV actor, done a few film roles, but he is, in fact, the actor who, I guess there's no other way to put it, he killed Brandon Lee. Like he pulled the trigger on the gun that killed Brandon Lee. Let's talk about what actually happened. So there was a scene that required a gun to be loaded, cocked, and then pointed at the camera. Because of the close range of the shot, the dummy cartridges that were loaded into the gun had to have real brass caps, like a bullet. It had to have a real bullet, but there was no gunpowder. So after they got that shot, the props master, not the arms master, dry fired the gun to get the cock off. And it knocked the projectile part of the casing, off of the casing, and into the barrel of the gun where they couldn't see it. In the next scene, that they were filming with that gun involved that gun, and they put a cartridge in it, which is the opposite of what they did before. It wasn't a dummy bullet with no gunpowder. It was a casing and gunpowder, but no bullet. But there was already a bullet in the gun because it had gotten lodged into the barrel. So the script called for Fun Boy to shoot Eric as he walks through the room, which triggers a blood pack or a squib. And that was the bullet that was stuck in the barrel that came out and went into Brandon Lee, which ended up killing him. The footage of his death was actually developed, and they used it as evidence in the investigation. And then as part of the lawsuit settlement, they destroyed the footage. And yeah, that's how Brandon Lee died. And there's all sorts of other like hocus pocus bullshit surrounding the death of Brandon Lee, where they talk about how, it's even in the movie, what is it called? Dragon, the Bruce Lee story from 1993. There's even a section in that movie, again, before Brandon Lee died, that talks about this great curse over their family. And, Bruce Lee comes out of his coma and, says that dark things are coming to his family and all this kind of stuff. It was even in that movie. But, they talk about how Bruce Lee like predicted his son's death when he came out of his coma, when he had, a terrible back injury. And I don't know about all that stuff. Of course, I don't believe in all that kind of stuff, but it is kind of weird that, both Brandon Lee and his father, Bruce Lee, died in the middle of producing movies. Bruce Lee wasn't on set, but he died while he was making a Game of Death from 1978, and that movie had to be finished with body doubles and like really weird cardboard cutouts.
As I understand, Lee had completed most of his scenes for the film and was scheduled to shoot for only 3 days after. So they didn't have a lot to make up, but and then other things I read about it, his Shelley in the movie, Sophia Shinnis,
I guess, I'm not sure.
She witnessed the accident and she didn't want to continue filming anymore and went home apparently to LA.
See.
And then Fun Boy, as I understand, took a year off from acting, and if the internet is to be believed,
Michael Massey, that's true.
He's never seen the movie.
Yeah, that's what he says. He says that, even to this day, he has nightmares about the incident. He did take a year off from making movies. But yeah, a terrible, terrible accident. There are a list of scenes that were completed after his death. Of course, when he first enters the apartment.
I love that he has his hat on in this scene.
Ernie Hudson's so cute with his hat on and his little boxers and underpants. Yeah, so nice. But yeah, when Eric first enters the apartment after digging himself out of the grave, that whole scene we talked about how he wasn't actually there for. The shot of Eric falling from the window, he wasn't there for. They had to digitally composite his face onto a body double. The scene where he puts on his makeup, in that apartment scene.
Yeah, you can tell with that one that they're avoiding showing him in that scene.
And then when Sarah visits the apartment later and he's there, they don't show his face at all. So no, there actually isn't a whole lot that they had to do to make up for that.
Why is he looking at this beer like he doesn't know what it is?
I don't know. I've got that in my notes too. Eric, he's...
like he's an otherworldly creature, which he is, but he's not. He has all his human memories, right?
Well, he remembers how to play a fucking guitar, doesn't he?
So doesn't he remember what a beer is?
So he's in Ernie Hudson's apartment right now, and they're talking about, the night that Shelley died and all this kind of stuff, and, his work with the police and trying to figure shit out. Not really sure exactly what the point of this scene is, other than to get the memories out of Ernie Hudson's head, but that's probably it. And he goes to the fridge and pulls out a beer, and before he gives it to Ernie Hudson, he's kind of looking at it like, what is this contraption?
He definitely has that look.
What kind of invention is this
glass
bottle with liquid in it?
You half expect him to turn it upside down to try to open it,
Yeah, it's stupid.
Anyway, so we can talk about how well this movie did.
That Don't Touch Me was a very Frank Booth-esque delivery of that line. Go ahead.
The film ultimately grossed $50,693,000.
How much did it cost? It was like
$23 million.
Was it a $23 million movie? Okay.
So it was a, what do they call it, a sneaker success.
Yeah.
And if you look at reviews even to today, I mean, it's got an approval rating of 82% on Rotten Tomatoes. Well, and this was the website I was looking at, so honestly, it could be different now. And it was saying the critical consensus states filled with style and dark, lurid energy. The Crow is an action-packed visual feat that also has a soul in the performance of the late Brandon Lee. Score of 71 out of 100 on Metacritic, but only based on 14 critics.
A little high for me. I find this movie very melodramatic to the point of being maudlin. I think that the flashback scenes are, like you said, it kind of conjures up feelings of The Room. And not to say that this movie is anywhere close to that terrible or that inept. There is some real technical skill that is on display in this movie. I think there's some beautiful photography in this movie. I think there's some, and
there are some actors in this that I like. Their performances.
Of course. I think Michael Wincott does a great job as Top Dollar. I mean,
pretty much most of the villains I'm fine with.
Tony Todd does a great job. Yeah, exactly. So there are really great performances in this, and there's some really great photography. I think that the special effects are a little iffy, and I think that might have to do with it kind of being it was kind of a salvage job because when Brandon Lee died, the studio shelved this, and then they ended up creating a company to kind of put together the pieces and kind of fix it to make it work as a movie. So it was kind of it was a salvage job, and I think that you can really see that mostly in the special effects and the editing, because I don't think the editing is particularly strong either. I think the movie has kind of a weird pacing to it and again, it kind of feels like a comic book movie that's real slow. It's kind of got that Teenage Mutant Ninja, we talked about that, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles pacing, where it is a comic book movie and it feels like a comic book movie, but a really slow one. I think we talked about an X-Men too. But yeah, there are things about this that I do like a lot. But overall, 71's a little high. So
some of the other reviews, Rolling Stone called it a dazzling fever dream of a movie. A writer for the New York Times called it a genre film of high order, stylish and smooth. Roger Ebert called it a stunning work of visual style. It was also praised by the Los Angeles Times. Here's the thing, though. A lot of these reviews comment on the fact that Lee died.
Yep.
Pretty much all of them.
Yep.
Phrases like he haunts every frame and etc. And I cannot help, and it's awful to say it, but I cannot help but feel like this is one of those cases where because the actor died during the movie, it lent fame to this movie, and it made people feel like it was perhaps more important than it was.
Well, it became one of those rare artifacts in filmmaking where your lead actor or one of your lead actors dies in the middle of production, and you've got to fix it. You've got to make it work somehow, and the whole thing ends up kind of being being a memorial to them. And
I'm not saying
kind of that. It's kind of a
to
in honor
Chris,
of them.
R. Poopling.
Yes.
And to any other fans of The Crow out there, I'm not saying that you like this because he died, because I don't think that. I think this movie does have a definite style to it and charm, and it's just kind of...
I will openly admit that if I had come to this movie earlier and had I had been a different kind of young person... it would have been a nostalgia pick.
No, the kind of young person that I was. I mean, you're talking to a girl who still loves the craft to hell and back, and who, I mean, I love fucking Queen of the Damned, and that's a pile of shit, and it kind of has a similar feel to this.
It definitely does.
There are things about Queen of the Damned that have a kind of the tone and stuff. You've got your rock star cool guy, bad,
like my movie,
whatever dude.
I will defend the movie Hook to the ends of the earth. If you want to hear that, go back and it's like our third episode, but I defend the shit out of the movie Hook. And I know that a lot of people that came to Hook later, even people who saw it back then, they didn't really see what all the fuss was about. And there wasn't a whole lot of fuss to begin with, but I still love that movie.
But I'm saying specifically this movie, if I had seen it in like junior high school or even high school, I am sure I would have loved it. And the thing is I had friends who loved it. I had tons of friends who loved it, and I just never watched it.
Something that I will never forget, and this is something that we just saw the shot of Eric playing guitar on the roof, on a wet roof. I don't know if it was raining, but it might as well have been. We can talk about that album here in a second. But that was one of the things that I remembered from the one time I had seen this movie because I had laughed at it. The first time I watched this movie, the most memorable thing about this was that, that shot, that rising crane shot where we break above the skyline and Eric is just sitting, cross-legged on the roof playing guitar because his dark and tattered soul in the blackness of the deep and it cracked me the fuck up.
When did you see it for the first time? College?
Like I said, maybe late high school, early college.
Okay. Yeah, so I think we were too old for it when we saw it. I think
Perhaps.
I think that when because I don't know if I've ever seen it in full before watching it for the show. I think you put it on once a few years ago, maybe a decade ago. You put it on once for me.
Maybe.
And I kind of watched it, but then we didn't watch it all the way or whatever. I don't know. I don't remember any of the details clearly about this film, so I think this is the first time I've actually
God, I love
watched
David
the
Patrick
whole
Kelly.
movie.
He's so good.
But anyways, though, it reminds me of like the Heath Ledger thing, right?
With The Dark Knight, and I think you're spot on with that.
The only difference is
here it comes.
The only difference is that I really like Heath Ledger's performance in that movie.
Heath Ledger delivers a great performance in a great movie.
In pretty much the same role. Let's be fair. The Joker. This is the Joker.
Kind of. The Crow is like the Joker. If the Joker and Batman had a baby, it would be
the Crow.
The Crow or whatever. Yeah.
Or whatever animal
Eric
you want to call it.
Yeah.
But so I really think Heath Ledger gave a great performance in that movie, and I think that The Dark Knight is a really great movie.
So can we talk about, we haven't really mentioned it, can we talk about Brandon Lee's performance?
I don't think it's very good.
I don't think it is either. I think that he obviously had a passion for this role. He had a passion for this project and this character and probably for the source material and everything. And he wanted to do right by the source material.
As I understand.
And I don't know that we could have gotten a better Crow movie at this time. But Brandon Lee, I think, is a really wrong choice for this role. I think originally, whoever had the rights to this wanted Johnny Depp to be in the role. And I can kind of see that. You mentioned you mentioned that Brandon Lee kind of has a Keanu Reeves thing about him. And I would say that Keanu Reeves would actually probably be better for this role at this time. Brandon Lee is it's in his voice. Mm-hmm. He's a little too homegrown middle America. I don't know. There's something about his voice and his performance that, first of all, I don't think his performance is really that good, but the way he plays it is like, hi there, I'm the Crow. Gonna fuck you up with my darkness. Look how dark and twisted I am. Gonna get ya.
Yeah.
The Crow's here.
I don't know. It doesn't work for me.
You know, this chase scene was shot with miniatures.
Oh, really?
They couldn't afford to actually shoot a car chase scene, so they shot a lot of this with miniatures.
That's cool.
Which is really fucking impressive.
That's really cool. I can see it now when I'm seeing going through the streets and stuff. That's pretty cool.
I mean, some of the shots are real.
Right,
yeah, that's obviously real.
But yeah, I get what you're saying. And him taking it seriously, he did take it serious. And Proyas took Lee's feedback on the script seriously, too. Because after Lee read it, he had a bunch of things that he wanted to incorporate.
It was a very, like, De Niro-Scorsese relationship, as I understand
and that included cutting one of the villains out, an Asian character who was trying to steal Eric's powers or something. And Lee thought that it was a stereotype. And he said, take it out. And they took it out.
Good. So, that's awesome. And then Proyas went on to direct... fucking Gods of Egypt.
I want to see it
A
so bad.
whitewash extravaganza.
Oh man, we really need to get drunk and watch that.
Alex Proyas was born in Egypt too. That's what kind of blows my mind. He was born to Greek parents, but he was born in Egypt, and he goes on to make a movie called Gods of Egypt, starring lily white dudes. It's just fucking.
It's got to
funny.
be fantastic. We really need to watch it.
I've heard it's kind of tremendously terrible. So, yeah, poor Alex Proyas. We haven't really talked about the director. I do want to talk about the director a little bit. Let's go ahead and talk about him. Alex Proyas directed Dark City, iRobot, Knowing, and of course, as we mentioned, perhaps a schlock masterpiece, modern schlock masterpiece, Gods of Egypt. It was until recently. He was until recently a guy that made a couple of movies that I liked. But I'm honestly afraid to revisit Dark City now. Like, after watching this, knowing what I know about Gods of Egypt, I watched iRobot and I didn't think much of it. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. I'm kind of afraid to revisit Dark City, which I feel like is considered his masterpiece. It is his Usual Suspects, on the Bryan Singer side of things, where it's like if he's got one great movie, that's the movie, But I don't know anymore. I'm gonna have to figure that out and maybe break my own heart, because I remember really, really liking Dark City, and I know a lot of people that really love that movie.
Let's see other stuff. Obar, when the movie was finished,
the author.
He bought his mom a car and a surround system for himself, and then he donated the rest of the money. And that didn't come out until he mentioned it in 2009 at a comic convention.
Right.
And he said, I was really good friends with Brandon, so it just felt like blood money to me. I didn't want to profit at his expense, and I kept that a secret for as long as I could. It's not charity if you get credit for it. I was like, man.
So this shot right here of him
guy.
waving goodbye to David Patrick Kelly may be a reference to The Warriors. As I understand it, Brandon Lee was a big fan of that movie, The Warriors, and of course, David Michael Kelly played kind of the main antagonist in that movie. His famous line being, "Warriors, come out and play, yay!" And he's got like these 3 little bottles on his finger that he's like tapping together and making this clinking sound as he kind of sulks or he's kind of lurking, I guess, around the Warriors' turf. And then as he is driven off the pier and his car explodes, Brandon Lee's character here waves goodbye with distinctly 3 fingers and does kind of a quick little wave. So I'm not sure if that's a reference or not. IMDb insists that it's a reference to the Warriors, but it's a little dubious.
Okay, so other things I want to mention. Okay, there's a reference that I want to talk about that we haven't talked about yet. Abashed the devil stood and felt how awful goodness is. That's during the flashback.
If you watch the TV in this scene, you will see Detroit pop up on the TV. I mentioned it earlier, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
But this scene, okay, we're gonna have to wait for I'll talk about my reference in a minute.
Okay.
Because right now what I want to talk is about, if I can find it in my notes, during the news. Okay. During the news, she's gonna say
Detroit.
when this takes place, and I can't find exactly where it is. But the newscaster talks about when the fires are taking place.
Right.
There's a continuity error here.
There's a mix-up of days, because what we're supposed to understand, I feel, is that the movie starts on Devil's Night last year, October 30th. Okay, because they keep saying that Halloween is tomorrow, tonight is Devil's Night. It even starts with the title card or the time date stamp, October 30th. Right.
Okay. I found it in my notes. So when we're having we do start, we know that it's Devil's Night. It says Devil's Night, Halloween, our October 30th, which is the night before Halloween. And then when Tintin is fighting with Eric, I wanted to say the crow.
Whatever. Either way.
He says Halloween is mañana. talking about the crow's costume.
Yes.
Okay. So that makes it Halloween Eve again, which has already been reinforced by the beginning of the movie. But the news report the next morning in that scene we just watched while Mom is making breakfast says that tonight will be the key of what may become the biggest and deadliest Devil's Night ever.
Right. We also get the time card that says 1 year later. And to me, when a time card says 1 year later, maybe it doesn't have to be
It's
exact.
exactly 1 year later.
Yeah, I would. That's what it makes me assume is that like the movie starts on Devil's Night last year, then flash forward to 1 year later, and exactly 1 year later on Devil's Night, Eric is resurrected.
No.
And
Here's what happens in this movie. We get 2 Halloween Eves.
right.
Instead of having Halloween Eve and then Halloween, we get 2 Halloween Eves. I'm not crazy,
No,
right?
no, you're not. No, you're not.
I just don't understand how you only have 2 days you have to worry about in this movie and they fuck it up like that and make it both the same day. We have Devil's Night twice. They tell us at the beginning of the movie, this is Devil's Night.
Ernie Hudson just got demoted again, by the way.
Oh, and that was during the flashback scene. But on when Tintin is fighting with him, he says, "Tomorrow is Halloween." That's what he says. Tomorrow is Halloween. So that means that tonight is Devil's Night. And then we have the newscaster say tonight is Devil's Night. And then the other thing is the crow says you killed them on Halloween to Tintin.
Right, when they actually killed them on
Devil's
Night.
Night. And you could make the argument, well, maybe it was technically Halloween because it was after midnight, except that's not possible because the police say that it's still early
That's right.
when they're counting how many fires have happened.
Well, early is subjective, but yeah.
True,
I think
but still.
I think this might be the only flashback in which Eric has a shirt because nope, maybe not. He has a real hard time finding
There's
a
a
shirt.
shirt. There's a shirt.
Oh, there's a shirt. Okay.
No shirt.
Shirt.
No shirt.
And these flashback shirts are rarer than gold. But yeah. Talk about David Patrick Kelly, T-Bird's final words. When he says T-Bird's final words are from Book 4 of Milton's Paradise Lost.
Oh.
When
sorry.
Lucifer is found in paradise by 2 cherubs, he rebukes them for not recognizing him, and they rebuke right back, saying that his appearance has changed from being in hell. And the quote is, "So spake the cherub, and his grave rebuke, severe and youthful beauty, added grace. Invincible, abashed the devil stood, and felt how awful goodness is, and saw virtue in her shape, how lovely. Saw and pined his loss, but chiefly to find here observed, his luster visibly impaired, yet seemed."
Yeah. So I was gonna
I thought that
mention
you.
that.
I thought
quote.
you would have the literary reference.
That's what I was starting to say before I went to talk about the newscast. Do you
Oh, okay.
remember when
No, that's fine.
And I also learned that David Patrick Kelly, who played T-Bird, used he bought a antique copy of Paradise Lost
Yeah,
to
I
use
saw
in
that
the
too.
scene.
That's interesting. I don't know if it's true, but that's an interesting thought.
Another quote, literary quote we got: "Mother is the name for God on the lips and hearts of all children."
Yes.
Who said it? It was during the
what's his name? Makepeace Thackeray.
No, the character.
Oh, the crow said it. He said it to Darla right after.
Right after I was thinking of the bad guy. Who the bad guy was in that scene?
It was
It's
Fun Boy.
Was it Fun Boy?
Yeah.
Okay. But anyways, that's from Volume 2, Chapter 2 of Vanity Fair, William Makepeace Thackeray, and it actually goes, "Mother is the name for God in the lips and hearts of little children." I know I always point it out when a quote is used incorrectly, and I'm not saying it always has to be used correctly. Probably, in most cases, it makes way more sense for a character to misquote or intentionally change a quote.
Sure.
I'm just pointing it out that it's different than what it says. But really, though, the question of using a quote in your fiction or your creative nonfiction, the real question is, does it mean something? That's the
Right.
real question. Can you tiptoe back to the source and make a connection? If not, well, I'm sure there's an argument for some intentional, absurdist reason to not make things connect. I'm sure that exists, but let's be honest, that's not the reason quotes are typically used out of context or without purpose in films or literature. So let's see if a reference to William Makepeace Thackeray's Vanity Fair makes sense in this movie. The book's title comes from The Pilgrim's Progress, 1678. And in that work, Vanity Fair refers to a stop along the Pilgrim's route, a never-ending fair held in a town called Vanity, which is meant to represent man's sinful attachment to worldly things.
No.
I mean,
I don't think it...
You could stretch something there.
Sure, you could
Talking
stretch.
about worldly attachment,
You could stretch
perhaps.
it, I guess. I don't know.
I think it's just weird. It's weird. I don't know. I mean, like, it's fine for that quote the quote means what he wants it to mean right then. But I really think when you're quoting something directly, that there should be a reason that you're quoting that. Like the Raven makes sense, right? We get it.
Sure. Yeah.
Quote the Raven in this movie. That makes sense.
Even though it's a different species, but whatever.
Right. No, but it's fine though. We've got the bird thing. It's fine. But I don't know. I'm just a prude about it. I feel like if you're going to quote, there needs to be a purpose.
And you should be. I mean, it's pretentious. It is the
Right.
It is the definition of pretentious. It is pretending that there is meaning where there is none.
Right. You use the phrase because it sounds good in the moment, and that's fine. But if you're not calling back to if there is not an actual connection to that work or that speech or whatever it is, and the thing that you are doing, then you just, it's surface level. It's superficial. You didn't actually do anything intelligent there. You just stuck in a quote from somewhere.
This little girl just said that she can't be friends with Eric anymore because she's alive.
Yeah.
And he's dead.
She did say that. She did.
Does that make sense to you? I mean,
okay, a thing I like. I like all the stab wounds.
Is he like a vampire? Is he a danger to her because he's dead and has to feed on human blood or brains or something?
I don't know.
Oh yeah, smash that guitar on that amp because of angst. Because there's the angst in you.
I like the wounds in this movie. I like the multiple...
On Eric?
No, I was talking about... I don't think we get to see his wounds enough. I think we need a better shot of his scars and stuff. I was talking about like the knives in Tintin.
Oh, yeah. The aftermath of the Crow's murders.
Right,
Yeah.
And the...
Yeah,
the syringes and
there's also a weird.
Fun Boy.
Yeah, the syringes are cool. I think that like how he kills people within the theme of whatever their theme is, more or less. Well, and he does with T-Bird too. Like T-Bird, he blows him up in his own car, which is a Thunderbird.
Right.
Yeah, I think that is interesting. There is a weird thing that he says that T-Bird actually says after they find Tintin, and that's that he stuck all of his knives and his internal organs in alphabetical order.
Yes, they did say that.
How do you know that? How do you know? How can you can a really good like forensics expert determine in what order a bunch of knives were stabbed into a body?
Maybe if there was like, I'm sure that something very specific you could tell if it was stabbed into like this vital organ before they died or something like that. You might be able to. But I mean, honestly, after sitting through all these trials and listen to these forensic specialists and experts come in here and talk about stuff, it's surprising how much they don't know and how much they can't. I don't mean to say it like that, but like how much TV has made us believe that we can figure out fucking everything.
Oh, that it's like magic or something.
Yeah, and it's not true.
No, I know.
It's just not. And I bet that would definitely be something that we wouldn't be able to figure out. And even if we could figure it out, what forensic scientist is going to sit there and go, wait a minute, this was done in alphabetical order?
Like that matters. It doesn't make him any less dead.
HIJKL, heart comes before lungs.
Wait, actually, if we pull them out in reverse alphabetical order, we could resurrect him. Not happen. No, that's not happening. This is a scene right here, I think, that also really characterizes Top Dollar in a super interesting way, in a way that no other character really gets characterization. And he's talking about how Devil's Night has become an institution. It's on the verge almost of being commercialized.
Well, he talks about it being on greeting cards.
Exactly, yeah. So I feel like, this speech there's a real analog here between what Top Dollar is talking about with Devil's Night and what Tyler Durden's eventual issues with Fight Club and Project Mayhem are in the movie Fight Club and in the book Fight Club. He's talking about institutionalized chaos. He's talking about crimes of fashion, where this, this thing that they did to stir up or breed a little bit of anarchy or chaos in their city has become something that the city kind of latches onto as an institution. He does, in fact, he does say that there are Devil's Night greeting cards. And when you've gotten to that point, it's time to hang it up, because the whole point of you doing the bad thing that you've done is lost now. There is no chaos, There is the society has created an order around the chaos. Right. So
this is Joker as hell.
Oh my God, I do want to give credit where credit's due. Even though I don't really care for this movie, I feel like there's a lot that is borrowed from this movie in another.
Oh my God,
movies.
Yeah,
so much. I feel like this influenced so much,
especially The Dark Knight.
This scene right here, the meeting of the bad guys, right? In which the Crow / the Joker just shows up and sits down among them. The way he comes and
jumps on the table, like the whole feel to it is so Joker.
Very much like that scene in The Dark Knight. Very much.
So Dark Knight Joker. And then, the way he disappears and the way they comment on him disappearing.
Yeah.
Is very Batman in those movies.
Very Batman, very much so. And they
I hate how he does that.
They make
that
jokes
kind of thing.
They make jokes about it constantly throughout this movie. It's like, oh, he really likes to do that. He really likes to disappear when you're not looking. The first guy that gets pulled under the table in this scene right here, who is it? It is... I'm trying to find out who it is. It's David Shaw, David J. Shaw, the writer, or one of the writers of the screenplay on this. And before the gunfight starts, there's a line. He says, "I see you've made your decision. Now let's see you enforce it," which may or may not be taken from a statement made by President Andrew Jackson regarding the ruling of the Supreme Court of the Indian Removal Act, or that the Indian Removal Act was illegal. The line was altered from "That's John Marshall's decision. Now let's see him enforce it," and used in this movie. I think it might be just a coincidence, but an interesting coincidence nonetheless. And of course, this scene right here, I feel like the shootout in this, especially in this scene, probably influenced The Matrix.
And
specifically
I think
so. the shootout at the checkpoint.
With the awesome moment of the metal detectors.
Yeah, the metal detector checkpoint.
God, that moment's still cool.
Yep.
I still love that moment.
Super awesome.
What was I going to say about this? I was going to say, so this was the scene that for me, I was just like, and I guess he did have kind of the pirate sword too. Top Dollar.
Yeah, he has a rapier. He prefers a rapier.
Right. And I mean, that's...
I think Top Dollar's the only one that's got a pirate thing going on.
But they talk about...
But then he has a katana. He has like a samurai sword at the end of the movie.
I don't know. Anyways, I don't know why they made the pirate comment. What I was going to say is that it was that scene with all the criminals there that made me really realize... because it was kind of hard to determine exactly what was going on with the Crow. But the wrongs that he's righting aren't the wrongs of this city. It's not like he's come back to right the wrongs of the city and make things a better place and whatever.
No.
He's come back specifically to get vengeance.
It's for revenge.
For his girlfriend, for his fiance, and only for her.
Right.
So he comes in, and I realized that in the scene because he comes in and they... they're talking about destroying the entire city.
Right.
They're having a conversation about how they are going to destroy the entire city.
And he doesn't give a shit.
No, he doesn't care. He says to them, "I only want him," and points at this guy right here. I forget his name.
Skank. Yep.
That's a pirate name.
Yeah, sort of.
No, I'm being sarcastic.
I mean, it could work as a pirate name. I don't know. Another terrible shot that we just saw of someone falling out a window way too slowly.
I like the way he ran off there. The little sideways run.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, so let's talk about some of the people who worked on this movie. We talked about Alex Proyas. Let's talk about the writers. David Chow. David Chow has something of a history in horror movies. He wrote Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. He also wrote Critters 3 and 4. And he also coined the term splatterpunk.
Wait, isn't Critters 3 the terrible one with Leonardo DiCaprio?
With Academy Award winner Leonardo DiCaprio.
His first film appearance.
That's right. His first feature film appearance.
Oh my God, that movie is so bad. It's not even. Don't watch it.
It is really bad. But
It's not
he also
fun.
wrote Critters 4, which
has a lot of. Can you zoom and enhance?
Let's
for
zoom
me?
and enhance on that image real quick.
I'm gonna need
14% zoom and enhance, please.
I'm gonna need a zoom and enhance on that.
It's that kind of sci-fi.
Which I love.
I think we've made that joke on the podcast.
We
before.
have.
We did mention the music. Graham Revell. Welcome back to the show. He actually scored Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie, which we've covered on the show before. He's been working consistently since the 80s. His first feature film was Philip Noyce's Dead Calm in 1989. But he also scored Child's Play 2, Street Fighter, Tank Girl, From Dusk Till Dawn, and Spawn, which is a lot like this movie, I feel.
I don't know why
Spawn
the Crow
and The Crow are real similar.
needed an escape here with the car because I think he was doing just fine getting away from the helicopter and
in a very Batman-esque scene. The running across the rooftops to me is just crazy Batman.
And then he gets in the car and I feel like seeing the car would be like way easier for the helicopter to spot. I don't know. It was I don't know why he needed help there.
I don't know, but that scene did end a lot like a scene that we saw in Batman Mask of the Phantasm where he's running across rooftops and he ends up in the car with Andrea Beaumont. Is that character's name?
So we have the mystical Asian here.
Totally, played by Bai Ling. I think this was her first big Western role. But yeah, she knows that the Crow is the avatar for Eric Draven. And she somehow knows that if you kill the Crow, you can destroy the man, which is what Tony Todd says.
How does she know?
I don't know.
We don't know.
I don't know.
I guess we don't care.
I do want to give a little love to Tony Todd. Tony Todd, who's probably best known for playing Candyman in the Candyman films, and less known for a role in a movie I think everybody should watch called The Man from Earth, which is...
Everybody should watch that movie. I love that movie. Can we talk about why children are dressing up on Halloween Eve?
I don't know. That's a really good... That's a really good question.
Since this is Devil's Night Part 2?
Yes, they're running around with bags of candy in this terrible slow-mo that was not intended to be slow-mo. Lots of that in this movie. There's plenty, and another freeze frame. God damn it. God damn the freeze frames in this movie. Yeah, there's plenty of real slow-mo in this movie, and by real slow-mo, I mean footage shot at high speed and played back at 24 frames per second so that it's got a smooth feel to it. So it's actually smooth slow-mo as opposed to something shot in 24 frames a second that they just slow down so that they can have fake slow-mo, which looks choppy and terrible. There's about equal portions of each in this movie, and I just think that there's no excuse for fake slow-mo.
Do people still set fires in Detroit on Halloween Eve?
Yeah, probably. Detroit's jacked up. It's been jacked up for a while. But yeah, I would imagine yes. If you're from Detroit, are there jacked up parts of Detroit that still get set on fire during Devil's Night? Please let us know. Inquiring
awful.
minds want to know. Contact at popcornpoops.com, please. Let's talk about the director of photography. I do like a lot of photography in this movie. Not saying anything about the compositing of the special effects onto some great photography, but Darius Wolski is a great DP who hasn't really had the fortune of working on really, really great movies. He worked with Alex Proyas on Dark City. He shot all of the Pirates of the Caribbean films. Only the first of which I actually like. He shot Sweeney Todd, which I don't really care for. He shot Prometheus, which I don't really care for. And he shot The Martian, which is good. I really like The Martian,
I really like The Martian.
all of which are beautiful movies. I mean, Prometheus is an incredible looking movie.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah.
It's incredible looking.
Gee, that movie is
really good looking.
pretty.
That's all we're going to say about it.
Yeah, I feel like he should be a name that people say more when they're talking about, the Christopher Doyles of the world, so to speak, or the Janusz Kaminskis. Dariusz Wolski. Get that name in your mouth.
I wanted to talk about this little girl in that emotional scene that we just had with her and Eric. We don't know their connection. We don't know. We know that she was maybe living with him sometimes.
Maybe sometime.
I mean, that it's all we know. And we have this emotional scene between them. You have to pay for it, people. You have to pay for it.
You have to prepay, like a track phone.
You have to prepay. If you want me to buy your emotional beat, you have to prepay. You have to put the effort into developing those relationships and those characters, because otherwise I don't give a shit. And that's the case with this movie. I don't care about Shelley. I care about Sarah, but I don't care about her relationship with Eric. I guess it's very frustrating to me when they just expect that you're going to buy. It's cheap. It feels cheap.
Yeah.
Like cheap writing.
So so Eric Draven's outfit has fully devolved into Edward Scissorhands.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, straight up Edward Scissorhands. Look at that shot. If he had scissors on his hands, that would be Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah.
That's it.
Which is why, Johnny Depp.
A lot of this was cribbed from Tim Burton stuff, and Johnny Depp was a contender for the role until Brandon Lee really showed that he cared about this role, cared about the character and the property. But yeah, that poor bird. They shot that poor bird.
As I understand, this wasn't a real cathedral. It was just a set with 3 walls and no roof, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, I don't really care for this. There are a lot of really dumb lines in this movie. One of which was one that Michael Wincott just delivered. Here's an impression for you. Ka bang fuck I'm dead.
Mm-hmm. Here's another weird thing about this scene. When he gets shot right here, when Eric gets shot and he falls to the ground, and right here, all of this.
I do like the delivery of "aw fuck." This is the most levity that this movie has. It's good.
I do like the delivery, but I thought that he was joking or pretending in that scene.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought that he wasn't really hurt and that he was pretending.
Well, that is the only levity that this movie affords itself, because this movie is dead serious. It does not. I mean, there's not an ounce of satire or anything in this movie. It is not playing with these tropes. It is just using these tropes and stretching them to their full extent, or farther, maybe it could be argued. And then Ernie Hudson shows up with a flare gun and a pistol and shoots the flare gun because cool lighting.
Cool lighting. Yeah,
because cool
that's
lighting.
the reason. Cool lighting.
That's it. And then he drops the flare gun immediately because just want some more interesting lighting. So flare gun. Okay.
The scenes in this movie are really short. I hadn't mentioned that yet.
They are. That could be a product of
kind of chopping it up and putting it together.
Well, yeah, the chop job. Mm-hmm. It could be a product of that, or it could just be that the script is that way. I haven't read the script for this, so there's no way of knowing. I haven't read the comic, so I'm not sure. But yeah, we're about to get another terrible line where Ernie Hudson says,
"Invincibility.
I thought you were invincible or something, or I thought you had invincibility," and his response is, I'm not anymore. I can't do it justice, like how bad
the way it's not just in the voice, but it's also in his eyes, like the really wide-eyed thing all the time.
Here it comes right here.
I'm not anymore.
I'm not anymore. I'm just not invincible anymore.
But that's why there is a little bit of a Joker twist to the way he says stuff. I think there is something of the way
Heath Ledger's Joker.
Right. That's what I
don't think you're wrong there. I feel like in some cases that could be an easy pull because of the makeup and the stringy hair and shit like that.
Right, but I think the way Heath Ledger enunciates his words and
you're
stuff.
Right. I think you're right.
That's taken from this performance and made into something better.
Something better. I think you're definitely right about that. And I don't think I've ever heard anyone actually claim that Heath Ledger's performance was kind of pulled in some part out of Brandon Lee's performance from The Crow. But now that you're saying that, I really do see it.
Well, I think it's like
it's in his diction and his enunciation.
It's in the diction. Yes, it's in the enunciation. It's the way he pronounces words, and it's that crazy like wide-eye thing too. But this is the good guy version of it.
The wide-eyed, deliberate pronunciation.
This
of
is
certain words,
this is the chaotic good, right? And and Joker is chaotic evil, right?
Sure. Okay.
I know you get pissed when I start talking D&D.
Sure, it's appropriate. It made me laugh. That's fine. But yeah, anyway. This bird attacking Biling here is a robot. Robo-bird.
This is, again, makes sense. Her getting her eyes pecked out, and she cut out the girl's earlier in the movie.
They would cut it. She had a thing for cutting out people's eyes. And
well,
then they would
say she had a thing, but we don't know that she had a thing. We just saw her do it one time. We disagreed on this moment because we see her do it one time, and then in the next scene we see an eyeball burning in a cup, and you have to believe that is the eyeball that she just cut out of that woman.
Right.
And then there's another eyeball on the table. People generally have two eyes.
Sure.
And there's another eyeball on the table, and they say something about that being the eyeball of somebody who didn't do what Top Dollar wanted him to, or double crossed him, or something like that. And I was like, no, that was the eyeball of the lady you were fucking that you killed and then you cut it out. And you suggested that she had a thing for cutting out eyeballs, and this was a common thing.
I thought it was.
I think you have to
the only reason,
show it twice.
Well, maybe 2 is the magic number, but the only reason I thought that was because it wasn't that they were just cutting out the eyes, it's that they were burning the eyes and like breathing the smoke as though it was a ritual that they did. It was something that they did. We only see him do it once. You're right about that. But I don't know. It felt too ritualistic for it to be just a thing that they only do one time.
I don't know. I think she's crazy. So
sure. Okay.
Maybe she just was like, let's burn this eyeball that we just cut out of this lady's face.
Yes, perhaps.
Are you going to say something?
I just wanted to talk about the final rooftop showdown, the rooftop confrontation between Eric Roof Dap Chap between Eric and Top Dollar here was not shot on the roof of a church, but it was on modular pieces on a soundstage floor. I don't think they shot a lot of this movie, if any of it, on location. I know it was shot in like North Carolina or something like that. And this particular part of this final scene where they're just kind of talking on the rooftop has a sort of Blade Runner vibe going on.
I also think it's kind of if we're going to stretch and try and find a reason for this line, I guess it's kind of like a pirate battle.
Sure. What's the line?
They all have pirate names. It's a Jolly Pirate Band or whatever he says.
Right, yeah.
So I spend the whole movie searching for things that are like pirates.
It's sort of swashbuckly. Look at that knife. That's a pirate knife, right?
Well, and they, both have their makeshift swords. One of them is not a sword. It's the weather vane or whatever it is, the pinnacle at the top of the cathedral. Right? I don't know how he gets to give the pain itself. I mean, the memory of watching someone be in pain, but how does he give the pain that she felt that he didn't see, that he took from a cop who didn't feel it but just saw it?
There's another terrible falling scene. There's 3 in this movie. 3 terrible looking falling shots.
That's cool.
That's super cool. Him being impaled and all the blood like spilling out from
of the mouth of the statue.
Yeah.
Yeah, super awesome.
It's super cool, and I love it in the darkness of my soul. Darkness of my soul loves that. It really responds to that. So yeah, we got our kind of somewhat happy ending. And like I said, the moral of the story, revenge is good. Feels so good. It's the thing to do. If someone does you wrong, just revenge the shit out of them, because that's the way. That is totally the way.
Why does I have a question here. Why does he say yuck about the cigarette in this scene? Because he's about to.
I don't know.
Crow's gonna light the cigarette for him and give it, and he's gonna go yuck. I'm not smoking anymore.
I don't know. I was kind of hoping the Crow would have a cigarette with him. but he doesn't. Oh well.
I mean, vampires smoke all the time,
Sure.
right? Like, why do you care if you're a vampire?
And he's already dead, so what's the point?
Right. Enjoy life. Or death. Enjoy death, I mean. But yeah, like he says yuck right there, and he spits it out and says, I'm quitting now. And I'm thinking to myself, if I'm an on-off smoker and I'm saying I'm going to quit, and I just got shot and someone offers me a cigarette, I will not be saying, yuck, I'm quitting now when they put that cigarette in my mouth. Just saying.
I see. Well, we're coming to the end of the movie. Got a couple of trivia notes. Alex Proyas said in the commentary that Brandon Lee was unhappy with the way the face makeup looked when he applied it because it looked too fresh. So he would have them apply it the night before, or he would let Lee apply
in it.
He would apply his own the night before, and he would sleep in it.
Yeah. And you know what, though? I kind of agree with that because it does have like a worn out look in most of the scenes. And I think it looks way better than if it had been like clean and fresh and clown makeup-y.
With the caveat of the special effects looking basically uniformly terrible in this movie, with the exception of some of the practical stuff. Like the miniature chase scene is pretty fucking cool once you know it's a chase scene.
Right, yeah.
But the compositing specifically in this movie looks really terrible. But I think visually, that's a great looking movie. I think production design looks excellent.
I love the colors.
I think costumes look good. The colors look good.
The architecture, the buildings.
Photography's good. Like I feel like technically, in some ways, it's a really sharp movie. Like it shows really what you can do with just $23 million. And $23 million was not a huge budget. It was not a huge budget at that time, and it's still not a huge budget. And I feel like they really stretched it and made it go as far as it could. And, you know, with the bumps and the hiccups along the way, I mean, they had some pretty fucking big ones. Their star died. So
yeah.
I think it's kind of amazing that this was patched into a movie that is watchable. It's totally watchable. But I don't think it's super great.
I want to feel something here.
I know. Don't you wish you could feel emotions for these two characters?
I wish I could, but I don't.
And look at the terrible slow-mo again.
Buildings burn, people die, but real love is forever.
Do you see that? This is a lesson. If your slow-mo looks like this, you're doing it wrong. This was shot in 24 frames a second. And now, see, that's what it looked like. And then back to terrible slow-mo. Because it was shot in the 24 frames a second that we saw before when she said thanks, and then it goes back to...
So you're saying you have to know that you're going to do slow-mo before you film it?
Yes.
That's what you're saying
Yes.
the difference is technically here.
If you do it in post, and of course we finished the movie on a freeze frame. Honestly, after like the handful of unnecessary freeze frames in the movie, I'd be disappointed if we didn't have a freeze frame.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, dedication to Brandon Lee and Eliza. Eliza, of course, being... what is her last name? Eliza Hutton, who is Brandon Lee's fiance. We didn't talk about the other writer, whose name was John Shirley. Mostly worked in TV. He wrote the Fangoria Fright Fest movie, The Tomb. He hasn't really done a whole lot. But yeah, I've got a bunch more like trivia notes and stuff that you can mostly find on IMDb. So if you're interested in that stuff, go take a look at it. Do you have any final thoughts on The Crow?
Well, I was trying to find out what this song is here really fast.
Oh, let me see if I can pull it up. I'm not sure if I can. I had some notes on the soundtrack, which is not a bad soundtrack. I know that it's kind of hailed as one of the great movie soundtracks of the 90s, but I never owned it myself, so I'll stick with Dumb and Dumber as my favorite 90s movie soundtrack.
I don't think I'm going to be able to figure out what song this is specifically, but what I wanted to say is I really apologize for those of you who love this soundtrack, because I know there are a lot of people out there that are ready to take up arms for this soundtrack, but this is maybe one of the worst songs I've heard in my entire life.
Oh, no. Is it? Let's see.
It won't rain all the time. It must be.
That's right. It can't rain all the time. Written by Graham Revell, the composer, and Jane Siberry or Siberry, performed by Jane Siberry. Yeah, this is supposed to be, I guess, we didn't talk about his band. Hangman, what is it? Hangman's Joke or something like that?
Something like that.
I guess this is supposed to be the song from his band, Hangman's Joke, or whatever.
Hangman's Joke is the band name. The album is called Last Laugh. And side 1 is All We Can See, and it has Bombardier's Fall.
Which could be a Blitzkrieg Bop reference by the Ramones, perhaps.
Fall Down Laughing, It Never Was You, New Cowboy Boots, and Fire in the Rain.
Okay. Well,
anyways.
That's The Crow. Any final thoughts on
My
this?
final thoughts are that I, for someone who maybe saw it a few years ago, but really definitely didn't see it in full till I was an adult, I don't hate it. I like it. I mean,
do you like it?
I like it enough. I think, it's dark and it's gritty and it's got, some good deaths in it. And I guess I can tell that if I had been like a teenager or in junior high when I had seen this, I would have loved it. But now it's hard for me. The biggest thing is that I can't latch on to the romance, and I love my romance and my horror and my sci-fi and my genre fiction. And I want to be able to latch onto it, and I can't in this because I don't believe it. I don't know these characters.
Sure.
So.
It's a gothic romance, and if 50% of that is romance and the romance doesn't work, then you've only got half a movie. And I totally get that. I feel like character work needs work. I think that the editing is kind of rough. Pacing is a little bit weird. But technically,
weird
other
continuity
than that,
stuff too.
Yeah.
And I didn't mention them, but there are a lot of like prop continuity errors and that kind of stuff too, and makeup continuity errors.
And when I complain about the freeze frames, I'm not just talking about the obvious freeze frames. If you go back toward the beginning of the movie, in the scene where she's eating hot dogs with Ernie Hudson, that scene ends with like a 2-frame freeze frame. Like it's not supposed to be there, but it's there. And if you look for it, you can find it. That's a weird oversight that I just don't know how that happens. But anyway, yeah. Weird little nitpicks and technical stuff aside, it's a watchable movie that I don't really have a strong connection to. I can't really say that I like it that much. But yeah. That's
All
it.
right. Well, that's going to be it for Popcorn Poops. You can find us at our website at popcornpoops.com. You can subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, and YouTube. On social media, you can follow us on Twitter. For the podcast as a whole, it's at Popcorn Poops, but individually, I'm at J. Casper Kramer.
And I am at Dusty Cram Cram.
You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, or follow our channel on Twitch, The Pixel Poops.
That's right.
Twitch.tv/thepixelpoops.
We don't have a schedule or anything at all right now, but if you go and follow us and turn on notifications, you will know when we go live, whenever that is. And it's a good time. We just play some games and have some fun.
Other ways to support the show include buying merchandise from our shop, which you can find on our website, or donating, giving us just some money, which we promise to use on the show specifically. And that donation you can make by clicking on the donut button on the website.
Big pink donut. You can't miss it.
You can also go to audibletrial.com/popcornpoops and sign up for a free trial.
Yes, and of course, the best way that you can support the show is by leaving us a rating and review on iTunes. We mentioned at the top of the show. Please do that above donating, above buying stuff from the shop, above any of that stuff. Really, ratings and reviews are the best way to help the show because it's the best way to spread, the word about the show. And also just, telling your friends about us. If you like what we do, please tell your friends because we need listeners. We need more pooplings. Build the poopling army.
Our Poop Owl this week was the In Session Film Podcast, which you can find at InSessionFilm.com. And Dustin, what are we watching next week?
Well, next week we are continuing with hashtag Poopling Picks Month with Darren Aronofsky's 2008 film, The Wrestler, which should be a good time. Have you seen The Wrestler?
I have not.
Okay, well, we're going to watch it this week, and I'm curious what you will think about it. You've seen some Darren Aronofsky films before, so I have an idea of where you stand on him as a filmmaker, but this is a little bit of an outlier for him, so it should be interesting. But yeah, so that'll wrap us up for this week. Until next time, take care.
Bye-bye.
We are the Popcorn Poops.